The moment Ethan's mother whispered in his ear, Iris knew her life was over. Standing alone near the marble staircase, 8 months pregnant and ankles swollen in designer heels, she watched her husband's face transform from distant to determined. 3 years of marriage, thousands of promises, one child growing inside her, all about to be sacrificed on the altar of family reputation. As security approached and Charlotte's elite turned to stare, she realized too late, she'd never actually been a Clifton. She'd been a problem waiting to be solved. She thought she had married for love. He saw her as a liability. She carried his child. He orchestrated her downfall. She had nowhere to go. They all turned their backs. She lost everything in one night. Until she discovered what they never expected. What happened next changed everything. She stood near the marble staircase of the Waverley estate, one hand pressed against the small of her aching back, the other clutching a glass of sparkling water she hadn't taken a sip from. 8 months pregnant. Swollen feet stuffed into heels she could barely feel anymore. The bass hum of classical music vibrated through the floor, mixing with the low murmur of Charlotte's wealthiest donors. And Ethan, her husband, the man who'd whispered forever into her skin on their wedding night, was staring at her from across the ballroom like she was a stranger he needed removed. Iris had worked a double shift earlier that day at the non-profit clinic downtown. Her feet were proof of it. She'd come to the fundraiser because Ethan's mother, Vivian, had insisted. Not asked. Insisted. Appearances matter, darling. Especially now. She should have known. Ethan was walking toward her now, his jaw set in that way that used to mean he was stressed about work. But tonight, his eyes held something else. Something colder. Vivian appeared beside him, a sleek silhouette in silk and cruelty. She smiled at a passing guest, then her gaze slid to Iris like a blade. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ethan's voice cut through the room with jarring clarity. The music didn't stop, but conversations did. Heads turned. "I need to address something. Publicly." Iris's heart dropped into her stomach. "No," she whispered. But her voice didn't carry. "Hi lovelies, someone told me this channel would never reach 1,000 subscribers because real stories don't get views anymore. Let's prove them wrong together. This isn't just entertainment, it's about justice, power, and what happens when someone decides to fight back against impossible odds. I need your support to continue telling these untold stories. Hit subscribe now. The truth deserves to be heard, and you deserve to be part of this movement. Join us." Ethan's face twisted into something she didn't recognize. "I've been patient. I've been understanding. But I can't keep pretending." She felt the baby shift inside her, a flutter of movement, as if sensing the danger. "This pregnancy," Ethan continued, his voice loud, deliberate, theatrical, was not planned. "And frankly, I'm not even sure the child is mine." The room inhaled. Iris couldn't breathe. She saw faces she knew, colleagues, friends, people she'd laughed with at brunches, all frozen in shock. Some looked away. Others leaned in. "Ethan, stop," she managed, but her voice cracked. Vivian stepped forward, her expression a masterclass in manufactured concern. "We've tried to support her," she said softly, but loud enough. "But she came from nothing. We think she saw an opportunity and, well..." She let the silence finish the sentence. Iris's knees buckled. She grabbed the banister. "Security," Ethan said, his voice flat now. Emotionless. "Please escort her out." 2 men in black suits appeared at her sides. She looked at Ethan, searched his face for the man she married, the one who'd held her during storms and kissed her awake on Sunday mornings. He looked right through her. "Ethan, please," she whispered. "Please." He turned his back. The security guards guided her, no, pulled her, through the crowd. She heard the whispers start before she even reached the door. Her coat was shoved into her arms. Her purse. Nothing else. The cold air hit her like a slap. The iron gates of the Waverley estate closed behind her with a soft, final click. And Iris Clifton stood alone on the street, 8 months pregnant, publicly humiliated, and suddenly, homeless. She touched her belly. The baby kicked. What do you do when the person you loved most becomes the one who destroys you? Iris didn't cry until she reached the bus stop 6 blocks away. Her feet screamed with every step. Her back throbbed. The November wind cut through her coat like it wasn't even there. She collapsed onto the bench beneath the flickering streetlight and finally let the sobs come, deep, shaking, silent gasps that tore through her chest. She had no idea where to go. 3 years ago, Iris had been someone else entirely. A woman with a small apartment in the arts district, a portfolio of product design she'd sketched late at night, and a dream of building something that mattered. She believed in wellness, not the glossy, expensive kind sold in pristine boutiques, but the real kind. The kind that helped women like her mother, who'd worked herself to exhaustion and never had time or money to take care of herself. Iris had wanted to create something accessible, beautiful, honest. Then she met Iris Clifton at a charity gala where she'd been volunteering. He was charming, warm. He listened when she talked about her ideas, called them brilliant, told her she had vision. 6 months later, he proposed on a rooftop under string lights, and she said yes because she believed he saw her. She'd been so wrong. Marriage to Ethan meant moving into the Waverly world, a world of old money, unspoken rules, and Vivian's constant, cutting disapproval. Iris had tried. She'd given up her cramped apartment, her independence, her designs. She took a job at a non-profit clinic to contribute meaningfully, as Vivian suggested. She attended the galas, smiled at the right people, shrunk herself smaller and smaller until she barely recognized her own reflection. But it was never enough. Vivian Clifton was a woman who wielded power like a scalpel. She had political connections that stretched into governors' offices and boardrooms. She controlled Ethan with the precision of a puppeteer, and when Iris became pregnant, unplanned, unexpected, Vivian's disapproval turned to cold hostility. "You trapped him," she'd said once, when Ethan wasn't in the room. "Don't think I don't see exactly what you are." Iris had told herself it didn't matter. That Ethan loved her. That once the baby came, things would soften. She'd been a fool. Now, sitting at that bus stop, Iris pulled her phone from her purse with trembling hands. She scrolled through her contacts, friends she'd known for years. She called Rachel first. Rachel, her best friend since college, the one who'd been her maid of honor. The call went to voicemail. She tried again. This time, Rachel answered. "Iris, her voice was tight, uncomfortable. "I can't talk right now. Rachel, please. I need help. I don't have anywhere to. I'm sorry." Rachel's words came fast, clipped. "My firm works with Vivian's foundation. I can't get involved. I'm really sorry." The line went dead. Iris stared at the phone. She tried 2 more friends. Both gave excuses. Both hung up quickly. The Waverly family had already started their campaign. Whispers. Influence. Pressure. Iris was alone. By the time the bus came, she'd made a decision. She'd go to the women's shelter on the east side. She'd volunteered there once, years ago. It wasn't much, but it was something. The shelter smelled like industrial cleaner and old coffee. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A tired woman at the front desk, her name tag read Dolores, looked Iris up and down, taking in the swollen belly, the expensive coat, the lost expression. "First time?" Dolores asked, not unkindly. Iris nodded. "You're safe here," Dolores said. "We'll find you a cot." The room they led her to was small, crowded, lined with narrow beds pressed close together. Iris was given a space near the back, tucked between a storage shelf and a woman who snored softly in her sleep. She lowered herself onto the cot, every muscle aching. And for the first time in hours, she felt her baby move again, a soft roll, a kick against her ribs. Iris pressed her hand to her belly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." But beneath the grief, beneath the humiliation and exhaustion, something else stirred. A flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. anger. Would Iris let them break her? Or would she find a way to rise? The next 48 hours moved like a nightmare in slow motion. Iris woke on that shelter cot to find her phone flooded with notifications, but none of them were kind. Screenshots of Ethan's accusations had spread across social media. Someone had recorded the entire humiliation. The comments were vicious. Gold digger. She trapped him. Probably not even his baby. Her hands shook as she scrolled. Then her phone rang. It was her supervisor at the non-profit clinic. Iris, the woman's voice was strained, apologetic. I received a call this morning from the Waverly Foundation. They're one of our largest donors, and they've expressed concerns about your current situation. Iris's stomach dropped. Concerns. They suggested you might be experiencing some instability, that it might be best if you took time off. Indefinite time off. A pause. I'm sorry. I have to let you go. The call ended. Iris sat frozen, staring at the phone in her hand. No job. No home. No money. She tried to access the joint bank account she shared with Ethan, the one with her savings, the money she'd contributed from every paycheck. Account access denied. She called the bank. They told her the account had been flagged due to marital dispute and frozen pending legal review. Legal review that would take weeks. Weeks she didn't have. Vivian's reach was everywhere. That afternoon, Iris forced herself to move. She couldn't just collapse. She had a baby coming. So she asked Dolores if there was any work she could do at the shelter, anything to earn a few dollars, to keep moving, to survive. Dolores looked at her belly, then at her face. You sure you're up for it? I don't have a choice, Iris said quietly. So she started. Cleaning the kitchen after meals. Sorting donated clothes in the back room. Folding linens. Sweeping floors. The work was hard, and her body protested with every movement, but it kept her hands busy and her mind from spiraling. She also picked up a night shift at a 24-hour diner 2 miles away, wiping down tables, refilling coffee, taking orders from bleary-eyed truckers and insomniacs. The owner, a gruff man named Paulie, didn't ask questions. He paid her in cash at the end of each shift. It was something. 1 week bled into 2. Iris worked. Slept on the cot. Avoided mirrors because she couldn't stand to see what she'd become. Then, one night, while searching the shelter's storage room for extra blankets, she found it. A battered cardboard box shoved behind a stack of donated winter coats. She pulled it toward her, curious, and froze. It was her box. Inside were things she thought she'd lost. Her old sketchbook, filled with product designs she'd drawn years ago. Natural wellness lines. Sustainable packaging concepts. Affirmations written in her own handwriting. Dreams she'd tucked away when she became Mrs. Ethan Clifton. Iris sank onto the concrete floor, the sketchbook open in her lap. The designs were still good. Better than good. She traced her fingers over a sketch for a lavender body oil. A line of affordable self-care kits for tired women. Products that didn't require wealth or access, just the desire to feel human again. Cute Pinterest fantasies, Ethan had called them once, laughing. But sitting there, in a storage room that smelled like dust and detergent, Iris felt something crack open inside her chest. Not hope. Not yet. But defiance. The next day, she borrowed a beaten-up laptop from the shelter's front desk. Dolores handed it over with a knowing look. You onto something? Maybe, Iris said. She started small. She recorded a video on her phone. No makeup, no script, just raw honesty. She talked about betrayal. About starting over. About choosing yourself when no one else will. She posted it at 2 a.m., then went to work her diner shift. By morning, the video had 60 views. By the end of the week, 6,000. People commented, shared, reached out. You're so brave. I needed to hear this. Where can I support you? Iris sat in the glow of that laptop screen, her baby kicking softly inside her, and made a decision. She was going to build something. Not for revenge. For survival. But she had no idea that someone from her past was watching. Someone who would change everything. The video views kept climbing. 10,000. 20. 50. Iris sat in the corner of the shelter's common room, the borrowed laptop balanced on her knees, watching the numbers tick upward with a mixture of disbelief and terror. Women she'd never met were commenting, sharing their own stories of betrayal and survival. Some asked where they could buy her products. She didn't have products yet, but she could make them. Using the last $70 from her diner shifts, Iris bought essential oils, small glass bottles, and labels from a discount supplier. She mixed her first batch of lavender body oil in the shelter's kitchen at 3 a.m, her swollen feet propped on a chair, her lower back screaming. Dolores found her there, bottling the oil by hand. "You're gonna work yourself into early labor," Dolores said, arms crossed, but her eyes were soft. "I don't have time to rest," Iris whispered. "If I stop, I'll fall apart." Dolores studied her for a long moment. Then she pulled up a chair. "Let me help." Together, they filled 20 bottles. Iris photographed them on the windowsill at dawn, golden light streaming through, and posted them online with a simple caption. "Made by hand. Made with hope. For women who are surviving." They sold out in 4 hours. Iris stared at the screen, tears streaming down her face. She made another batch. Then another. Word spread. A local blogger featured her story. Then a podcast. Then a small online magazine that focused on women entrepreneurs. Orders poured in faster than she could fill them. She needed help. She needed space. She needed so much more than she had. That's when the email arrived. Subject: I remember you. Iris opened it with trembling hands. "Dear Iris, you probably don't remember me. My name is Hallie Sinclair. You helped my daughter navigate a healthcare crisis 4 years ago when you worked intake at the downtown clinic. You stayed late, made calls, fought for her when no one else would. I've been following your story. I'm a retired business consultant, and I see what you're building. It's raw, but it's real. If you're willing, I'd like to help. No strings. Just an old woman who believes in paying kindness forward. Let me know. Hallie." Iris read the email 3 times. She didn't remember a Hallie Sinclair, but she remembered so many faces from the clinic, so many women she tried to help, even when the systems failed them. She typed a response with shaking fingers. "I could use all the help I can get." They met 2 days later at a small cafe near the shelter. Hallie was in her late 60s, silver-haired, sharply dressed, with eyes that missed nothing. She ordered Iris a decaf tea and a sandwich without asking, as if she knew Iris hadn't eaten that day. "Tell me your vision," Hallie said simply. Iris hesitated. She'd spent so long having her ideas dismissed, laughed at, diminished. But Hallie waited, patient, present. So Iris talked. She talked about accessible wellness, about creating products for women who were tired, overworked, forgotten, about building something that didn't require wealth or status, just the desire to take care of yourself. Hallie listened, took notes, asked sharp, insightful questions. When Iris finished, Hallie leaned back. "You're onto something, but you need structure. A real supplier. A website that doesn't look like it was built in 2005. Branding that reflects your story." "I don't have money for any of that," Iris said quietly. Hallie smiled. "I didn't ask if you had money. I asked if you were willing to work." "I am." "Good. Then let's build this thing properly." Over the next 3 months, Iris's life transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined. Hallie connected her with a small production facility willing to work on consignment. She helped Iris redesign her website, refine her branding, and craft a message that resonated deeply. Rebuild yourself. One small act of care at a time. Iris gave birth to a daughter, a tiny, fierce little girl she named Lila, in a hospital where Hallie sat beside her the entire time, holding her hand through every contraction because no one else came. Ethan didn't call, didn't visit, didn't acknowledge his daughter existed. It shattered something in Iris, but it also freed her. She poured everything into her daughter and her business. She worked from the shelter, then from a tiny garage Hallie helped her rent. She recorded videos late at night, Lila sleeping in a bassinet beside her, talking about motherhood, survival, starting over. Her honesty was magnetic. Women didn't just buy her products, they joined her movement. 6 months after being kicked out of the Waverly estate, Iris's company, Rebloomed, had generated $50,000 in revenue. 1 year later, $500,000. She moved out of the shelter into a small apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. Lila took her first steps there. Iris cried watching her, overwhelmed by gratitude and exhaustion and the strange, stubborn resilience she hadn't known she possessed. But even as her business grew, shadows from her past lingered. She saw Ethan's face sometimes, in her daughter's features. She wondered if he ever thought about them, if Vivian ever felt even a flicker of remorse. And then, one afternoon, Hallie arrived at the small office Iris had rented with an expression Iris had never seen before. Worried. "We need to talk," Hallie said, closing the door behind her. "I just got a call from my lawyer contact. The Waverly family business is in trouble. Deep trouble." Iris's heart stuttered. What kind of trouble? Financial misconduct. Possible fraud. There's an investigation brewing. Hallie paused. And apparently, some of the contracts and assets they're scrambling to liquidate? They intersect with suppliers and distributors you've started working with. Iris sank into her chair. What does that mean? Hallie's gaze was steady. It means if this keeps going the way it's going, you might end up with access to information that could destroy them. Iris stared at her. Vivian's voice echoed in her memory. You came from nothing. Ethan's cold eyes as he turned his back. The gates closing behind her. I don't want revenge, Iris whispered. I know, Hallie said gently. But you might have to decide what you do want. Because they're not going to ignore you much longer. And in the distance, a storm Iris didn't ask for was already brewing. 2 years after Lila's birth, Rebloomed had become more than a business. It was a movement. Iris stood in the newly renovated warehouse that served as her company headquarters, watching women package orders with efficiency and purpose. Most were survivors like her, women who'd hit bottom and fought their way back. The company employed 37 people now. They had distribution deals with boutiques in 6 states. A wait list for new products that grew longer every day. Iris had done what everyone said was impossible. But success came with new challenges. The Maddox Group is interested in us, Hallie said one afternoon, closing the door to Iris's small office. Iris looked up from her laptop. The retail chain. They're enormous. They want to carry Rebloomed in all their stores. It would triple your revenue overnight. Iris's heart raced. This was the opportunity she'd been working toward. True scale, true impact. There's a complication, Hallie added, her expression careful. The Maddox Group was recently acquired by a holding company called Westland Partners. And Westland Partners is controlled by the Waverly family. The room went still. Iris felt blood rush to her face, then drain away. You're telling me Ethan's family owns the company that wants to distribute my products? They don't know it's your company, Hallie said quickly. You've been operating under your maiden name. They're interested in Rebloomed because our numbers are extraordinary. Our growth caught their attention. Iris stared at her desk, mind racing. There's more, Hallie said, her voice softer now. My contacts tell me the Waverly businesses are struggling badly. The investigation I mentioned? It's accelerated. They need new revenue streams desperately, companies like yours that can generate quick profits. So they'd be profiting from me. Again. Yes. But you'd be getting what you need too. Major distribution. Iris stood and walked to the window. She could see her employees below, laughing, working, building something that mattered. Women who trusted her. I need to think, she whispered. Later that night, after putting Lila to bed in their modest two-bedroom apartment, Iris pulled out her laptop. She researched Westland Partners, digging deeper than she ever had before. What she found made her hands shake. The Waverly family wasn't just struggling. They were imploding. Financial records showed patterns of misappropriation. There were lawsuits from investors, a federal investigation into tax schemes, and buried in a local business journal article was a photograph that stopped Iris's breath. Ethan, looking haggard, leaving a courthouse. Beside him was a woman Iris recognized, Rachel, her former best friend. The caption read, "Clifton heir and legal counsel depart after contentious hearing." Rachel hadn't just abandoned Iris. She'd been working for the Cliftons all along. Iris closed the laptop, feeling ill. She thought she'd processed the betrayal. She thought she'd moved past it. But seeing Rachel beside Ethan ripped the wound open again. Her phone chimed with a text from Hallie. "Meeting with Maddox Group tomorrow at 10. Need your decision." Iris paced her small living room, mind spinning. The rational choice was clear. Take the deal. Grow her company. Let the past stay buried. But something didn't feel right. She opened her laptop again and kept digging. Past news articles. Past financial reports. She followed connections, tracing paths through the Waverly business empire until, oh my God! Her throat closed. The documents on her screen revealed something she never expected. Ethan had filed for divorce 6 months after Lila was born, claiming abandonment. The divorce had been granted in absentia when Iris failed to respond, because she'd never been notified. The papers had been sent to an address she'd never lived at. But that wasn't the worst part. The court record showed Ethan had been granted full legal custody of Lila, a child he'd never seen. A child he'd rejected before she was even born. A child he could now legally take from Iris at any time. Iris's hands trembled as she reached for her phone. "Hallie," she whispered when the older woman answered. "I need you to come over. Now." "What's wrong?" "Everything," Iris said. "And I think I finally know why the Waverlys want my company so badly." The game had been rigged from the start, and her daughter's future hung in the balance. Hallie arrived at Iris's apartment within 30 minutes, still wearing her reading glasses, hair disheveled from being pulled from sleep. Lila slept peacefully in her bedroom, unaware that her entire world was teetering on the edge of collapse. "They can't just take her," Hallie said after Iris showed her the documents. "You've been her only parent since birth. No court would." "The Waverly family has judges in their pocket," Iris interrupted, her voice hollow. "They have politicians. They have money. And now they have this." She gestured to the screen. "Legal custody. Granted because I supposedly abandoned my marriage. But that's a lie. It doesn't matter. The ruling exists." Iris sank onto the couch, her body suddenly too heavy to hold upright. "And now they want my company." Understanding dawned in Hallie's eyes. "You think this is connected?" "I know it is." Iris's hands shook as she pulled up another document. "Look at the timeline. The custody ruling came through 3 months ago, right around when our sales started making industry news. They realized who I was, what I'd built. But why would they want Lila now? Ethan never showed interest before." Iris's laugh was bitter, broken. "Control. Leverage. They know I'd do anything for her." The reality of her situation crashed over her like a wave. After everything she'd endured, after clawing her way from that shelter floor, after building something meaningful from nothing, they could still take the one thing that mattered most. Her daughter. Iris stood abruptly and rushed to the bathroom, barely making it before she vomited. Her body heaved until there was nothing left. She slid to the floor, pressed her forehead against the cool tile, and finally let herself break. The sobs came from somewhere deep and primal. She couldn't stop them, couldn't catch her breath, couldn't see through the tears. Hallie found her there minutes later, crumpled on the bathroom floor. "I can't lose her," Iris whispered. "I can't." Hallie knelt beside her, bones creaking. "You won't. You don't understand. If they take the Maddox deal, they get financial access to my company. If I refuse, they'll use the custody ruling to take Lila." Iris's voice cracked. "They win either way. There has to be another option." "There isn't. I've checked every angle." Iris's eyes were wild, desperate. "I have to run. Tonight. Take Lila and disappear. Change our names. Start over somewhere they can't find us." Hallie's face went pale. "Iris, that's kidnapping. They'd hunt you down. You'd lose everything, your company, your freedom. Lila would still end up with them. Then what am I supposed to do?" Iris cried, the words tearing from her throat. "Let them take my child? Let them steal my company? Let them win again?" The room fell silent except for Iris's ragged breathing. After a long moment, Hallie spoke, her voice low and steady. "When I was in business, I learned something important. When you're cornered, don't look for the exit. Look for the weapon." Iris blinked through tears. "What does that mean?" "It means maybe we're looking at this all wrong." Hallie's eyes narrowed. "You said they need money desperately. The federal investigation is closing in. What if instead of running from the deal, we use it?" "How?" "Information. Access. Playing their game but with our rules." Hallie's expression hardened. "I need to make some calls. People who can help us find exactly what the investigation is looking for." Hope flickered, fragile but present. "You think we can fight them?" "I think," Hallie said carefully, "that they've underestimated you from the beginning. And that's their biggest mistake." As dawn broke over the city, Iris stood at Lila's bedroom door, watching her daughter sleep, dark curls splayed across the pillow, tiny hand clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. So innocent, so unaware of the storms surrounding her. Iris had never felt more terrified, more alone, more determined. If they wanted a war, they would get one. But wars had casualties. And as she closed Lila's door and turned toward the uncertain day ahead, Iris wondered if she had the strength to face what was coming, and what she might have to sacrifice to keep her daughter safe. When fighting monsters, how do you avoid becoming one yourself? The Maddox Group headquarters towered over downtown Charlotte, 52 floors of steel and glass that seemed to touch the clouds. Iris stood in the elevator, clutching her portfolio, wearing the only business suit she owned. Hallie stood beside her, silent support in the face of what was coming. "Remember," Hallie whispered as the numbers climbed. "They think they have all the power. Let them keep thinking that." The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area larger than Iris's entire apartment. Beyond glass walls, she could see the conference room where her future would be decided. And there, waiting, was Ethan. 3 years had changed him. His face was harder, lined with stress. His once warm eyes were cold, calculating. Beside him stood Vivian, elegant as ever in Chanel, and 3 executives Iris didn't recognize. "No, Rachel." "Interesting." Iris took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Ms. Barton," the receptionist said, using Iris's maiden name. "They're ready for you." The meeting began with rehearsed pleasantries. No one mentioned their shared history. No one acknowledged that the last time Ethan saw Iris, he was having her escorted from his home. They talked about distribution channels, marketing strategies, revenue projections. Iris answered questions with calm precision, all while her heart hammered against her ribs. She could feel Ethan watching her, something unreadable in his expression. Then Vivian spoke for the first time, her voice silk over steel. "Your growth metrics are impressive, Ms. Barton. Tell me, How did you manage to build this company so quickly? It seems unlikely for someone with your background. The trap was set. Iris met Vivian's gaze directly. My background. A single mother with no formal business education. Working from a shelter. Vivian's smile was a weapon. Quite the rags to riches story. The room went still. They knew. They'd known all along who she was. Iris felt Hallie tense beside her, ready to intervene. But something had shifted inside Iris, something fierce and clear and unafraid. Actually, she said softly, I'd like to discuss the terms of this partnership more specifically, particularly the ownership structure. One of the executives slid a document across the table. Standard acquisition terms. Westland Partners would take a controlling interest. That won't work for us, Iris interrupted. Vivian's eyebrows rose. I don't think you understand your position, Ms. Barton. Or should I say, Mrs. Clifton? And there it was. The threat, unveiled. Ethan leaned forward. Iris. No. Her voice was steady. I understand my position perfectly. You want my company because you need the revenue. Your family business is under federal investigation for financial misconduct. You're hemorrhaging money and investors. Shock flashed across their faces. And, Iris continued, you think you have leverage because of a fraudulent custody ruling you obtained without my knowledge. Vivian's composure cracked. How dare! I'm not finished. Iris opened her portfolio and removed a slim folder. 3 days ago, I filed an emergency petition to vacate the custody ruling, citing fraud upon the court. I've included sworn affidavits from the shelter director, my employees, and my pediatrician, all testifying to my continuous custody of Lila since birth. She slid the documents across the table. But more importantly, I've included this. The final document was a sealed envelope. Ethan opened it, his hands visibly trembling. His face went pale. Where did you get this? He whispered. Someone who believed in justice more than money. Iris thought of Dolores, who'd connected her with a former resident who worked in the DA's office. The federal investigation isn't just about finances, is it? It's about evidence tampering. Witness intimidation. The same tactics you used against me. Vivian reached for the document. Ethan pulled it away. This meeting is over, Vivian announced, standing. No, it isn't, Iris said calmly. Because I'm still willing to make a deal. Just not the one you came here for. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in 3 years. What do you want? Iris met his gaze without flinching. Everything you tried to take from me. The tide had turned, and now Iris held the power to reshape her future. The conference room fell silent. Vivian's face had hardened to marble. The executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. What exactly are you proposing? Ethan asked, his voice strained. Iris slid another document across the table. A new agreement. Rebloomed will partner with Maddox Group, but we retain controlling interest. We handle our own manufacturing, our own messaging. You provide distribution channels, marketing support, and capital investment. Vivian laughed, a brittle, dangerous sound. You can't possibly think. I'm not finished, Iris continued. In exchange, I won't release those documents to the federal investigators. I won't contest the divorce. I won't demand back child support. She paused. But I will have full legal custody of Lila, with documentation acknowledging that your custody claim was fraudulently obtained. Ethan stared at her, something unreadable flickering across his face. You're blackmailing us, Vivian hissed.
I'm negotiating, Iris corrected.
Something you taught me when you took everything I had. One of the executives leaned toward Vivian. Perhaps we should discuss privately. There's nothing to discuss, Vivian snapped. This meeting is over. But Ethan hadn't moved. He was still looking at Iris, still holding the damning document in his hands. "Do you have a picture?" he asked quietly. Iris blinked. "What?" "Of Lila. Do you have a picture?" The question caught her off guard. Of all the things she'd expected from this confrontation, this wasn't one of them. Slowly, she reached into her portfolio and withdrew a small photo, Lila on her 3rd birthday, blowing out candles, dark curls framing a face alight with joy. Ethan took it with trembling fingers. "She has your smile," he said, so softly only Iris could hear. Something shifted in the air between them, not forgiveness, nothing so simple, but recognition. Acknowledgement of what had been destroyed. Vivian stood abruptly. "Ethan, we're leaving." "No." But Ethan didn't move. "The federal investigation is worse than she knows, Mother. If these documents get out," he met Iris's gaze. "You've built something extraordinary. I saw your website. Your videos. What you've done for those women." "Don't be ridiculous," Vivian snapped. "She trapped you then, and she's trapping you now." "No, Mother." Ethan's voice hardened. "You trapped me. You always have." He turned to the executives. "I'd like to review Ms. Barton's proposal. In detail." Vivian went rigid. "I forbid it." "I'm 34 years old," Ethan said quietly. "I don't need your permission." For the first time since Iris had known her, Vivian Clifton looked genuinely shocked. The next hour unfolded in a blur of negotiations, legal terms, and carefully worded agreements. Hallie guided Iris through each point, catching hidden traps, strengthening her position. The executives, seeing the writing on the wall, began to work with them rather than against them. Vivian stormed out halfway through, her parting glare at Iris promising this wasn't over. But it was. By the time the final documents were drafted, Rebloomed had secured everything Iris wanted: distribution through Maddox Group's extensive network, capital investment for expansion, and full creative control. And most importantly, legal documentation affirming her sole custody of Lila. As the executives filed out to prepare the final contracts, Ethan lingered behind. "Can I ask you something?" he said, his voice rough. Iris nodded cautiously. "That night, at the fundraiser, did you hate me immediately, or did it take time?" The question caught her off guard. She'd expected justifications, not vulnerability. "Both," she answered honestly. "Part of me hated you instantly. Another part took years to let go of what I thought we had." He nodded, accepting the truth of it. "I've been controlled my entire life," he said quietly. "By my mother. By expectations. By fear. It's no excuse for what I did to you. Nothing could excuse that." He paused. "But I need you to know that I've regretted it every day since." Iris studied his face. The remorse seemed genuine. "But so had his love once." "What you did nearly destroyed me," she said finally. "But in the end, it forced me to become someone stronger than I ever thought possible." She gathered her papers. "I don't forgive you, Ethan. I don't think I ever will. But I'm grateful for what rose from the ashes." As she turned to leave, Ethan spoke one last time. Would you ever consider letting me meet her?" "Lila." Iris paused at the door. "That's not my decision," she said firmly. "When she's old enough, if she wants to know you, I won't stand in her way. But I won't push her towards someone who rejected her before she was even born." She met his gaze one final time. "You'll have to earn the right to be in her life. And that starts with the choices you make today." With those words, Iris walked out of the conference room, head high, spine straight. Not as a victim seeking revenge, but as a woman who had found her power. Victory wasn't about destroying her enemies, it was about reclaiming herself. 5 years later, the new Rebloomed flagship store gleamed in the morning sunlight, the glass facade reflecting Charlotte's downtown skyline. Iris stood on the sidewalk, taking in the moment, the elegant display windows showcasing products that now helped millions of women, the subtle logo she designed in that shelter storage room so long ago. "Mom, come on!" Lila tugged at her hand, impatient and vibrant at 8 years old. Everyone's waiting inside. Iris smiled. Just giving myself a minute, sweet girl. Inside, the store hummed with excitement. Today marked not just the opening of their 20th location, but the launch of the Rebloomed Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to helping women rebuild their lives after trauma. Dolores from the shelter was there, now employed as the foundation's director. So were many of the women who'd started this journey with Iris, women who'd once worked beside her folding linens and sorting donations, who now held leadership positions throughout the company. Hallie stood near the ceremonial ribbon, elegant at 73, using a cane but refusing to sit down for what she called Iris's moment. When she spotted Iris and Lila, her face lit up. "There's our CEO," she called, waving them over. CEO of a $300 million wellness empire. The reality still stunned Iris sometimes. After the Maddox deal, Rebloomed had exploded into the national market. Their products, always accessible, always honest, resonated with women across the country. The videos Iris had once recorded on a borrowed laptop became a content platform where women shared their stories of survival and triumph. The company now employed over 400 people, most of them women who'd faced their own battles and won. As Iris prepared to address the crowd, she noticed a familiar figure standing at the back of the room. Ethan. He caught her eye and nodded slightly, respectfully. He didn't approach. He knew the boundaries. In the 5 years since their confrontation, he'd kept his word. He'd stepped away from his mother's influence, cooperated with federal investigators in exchange for immunity, and rebuilt his life on more honest terms. He'd met Lila for the first time on her 6th birthday, a carefully supervised visit that had been Lila's choice, not his demand. Since then, they'd built a cautious relationship. Not father and daughter exactly, but something that honored Lila's curiosity about her origins without undermining the life Iris had built for them. Vivian had faced different consequences. The federal investigation had stripped away much of the Waverly fortune and influence. She'd retreated to a smaller home in another state, her social circle diminished, her power gone. Iris didn't waste energy on hatred anymore. There was too much life to live. "Ready?" Hallie asked, squeezing her hand. Iris nodded and stepped forward to cut the ribbon. "When I started Rebloomed," she began, her voice clear and steady, "I was sleeping on a cot in a shelter, 8 months pregnant, wondering if I'd survive another day." She looked around at the faces watching her, some tearful, all attentive. "I didn't start this company to get rich or famous. I started it because I needed to remind myself that I was worth caring for." She reached for Lila's hand. "What I've learned since then is that we all have the capacity to rebuild ourselves, to take the broken pieces and create something more beautiful than what existed before." Cameras flashed. People applauded. After the ceremony, Iris found a quiet moment with Hallie on the store's upper level, overlooking the buzzing crowd below. "I never properly thanked you," Iris said softly, "for believing in me when no one else did." Hallie smiled. "You never needed to. Watching you build all this was thanks enough. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have." Hallie's eyes were fierce with certainty. "It might have taken longer, but you would have gotten here. You have something that can't be taught, Iris. The courage to begin again." Below them, Lila darted through the crowd, her laughter floating upward, a sound of pure, uncomplicated joy. That evening, after the celebration ended, Iris took Lila to their favorite spot, a small park overlooking the city where they often had picnics on summer evenings. As the sun set over Charlotte, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Iris watched her daughter chase fireflies across the grass. Strong, fearless, free. Iris had built more than a business. She'd built a life where both she and her daughter could thrive, where the wounds of the past had healed into scars that told a story of survival rather than defining their future. She hadn't just survived. She had bloomed. Again and again and again. The greatest revenge wasn't destruction. It was creation. My lovelies at Ducal Tales, thank you for joining me for Iris's journey. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below and tell me which moment resonated most with you. And if you haven't already, join our Ducal family by subscribing for more stories that remind us of the strength we all carry inside.